Beauty, we are live. Excellent. It is pre-stream time, and not everybody's here yet. Okay. Now we can bring up this, and we need to connect the TV. Okay. It's not rocket science, it's a television remote control. May as well be rocket science. Network. Mode. Switch power. Remember the days when they used to have on off on a button?
Ah, long gone. Whoa, you seem to have brought coffee first. Did you bring enough the whole time?
No.
Come on.
Are you sitting here? Sorry.
Yes, that's okay. Where'd you go? Spiral?
Spiral, yeah.
Nice.
Come on, did you turn on the TV?
It's on, I think. Looks like there's power. Like it looks like it's not a dead screen. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, mode.
No, I could be wrong.
I'm not getting anything here.
Roll it. Maybe one extra cook. I have a pencil.
That's about it here. I don't see it doing
There
it.
you
There you
go.
Oh, you found it.
See? On, off.
Yeah, okay.
Don't spell that on your computer.
That one's mine or yours?
That one's yours.
What you got? Okay.
A lot.
The joys of pre-stream. Hello, Internet. Uh-oh. There's two people watching. How about that? Okay, so, mode. Source, where's the source button? Apps, options,
Back? Drush for Pluto watches.
color TV. Search, and look, there we go, search. Let's see if we can find this. Display. Search.
I sit right in your way.
It's on HDMI 2. It's feeding HDMI 2. So do something. Where's that switch?
Oh, the front button's on the front. It's the silver button. It's red, so it's still on.
Yeah, I thought I'd
Or sorry, clear glass.
I thought I'd turn it off and let it turn back on and see if it can find my computer now. I've got it plugged in. Because I can't figure out which button on here tells it to search for,
Is there an input button on it?
yeah, it's an input.
That's not what you want. You want the internet then, don't you?
No, no,
You're warm though.
I don't need the internet for the TV. I need the TV to discover my thing here. Well, we had 16 people registered, so I'm really hoping more people show up in the next few minutes.
2 registered today.
There you go.
Cigarette lighter.
There we go.
Oh, you could have got the white thing with the
That's what we
finger
wanted.
phone. That goes from everything to USB.
Oh, oh well.
Perfect.
I'm gonna start doing
Okay. No talking, we're gonna start.
Well, we'll give it. Would you quit doing this, you silly? Oh, I don't think it's what it's supposed to. There we go. Come on. That's not what we want. Yeah, not having my mouse is my regular mouse is a bit of a problem.
Do you have a mouse, Sean?
No, I'm good. I'm good now. I just had to unplug my pointer to get set up. Okay. I'll give people another 3 minutes and then I'll give a presentation for everyone that's here. The joys of Meetup.
I don't understand, don't panic and carry a towel. What's the point of that? Carrying a towel.
Read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, that's it. It's a reference to Hitchhiker's Guide to the
Ah,
Galaxy.
okay.
Especially when you look at the apostrophe.
Yeah, it's a total thing. Oh, hey, yeah, see,
That
42.
book was written by a cousin of mine.
Yeah.
He's dead now.
Don't panic and carry a towel. It's Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
All right.
Your cousin wrote that?
Yeah.
Douglas Adams?
Douglas Adams?
Yes, that's right.
Douglas Adams was your cousin?
Yeah.
Awesome.
He was a child of my mother's sister.
Look at that. 2 degrees of separation now.
That's crazy.
It's amazing how you can meet people. Well, I've got 1 degree of separation to Keanu Reeves. You know, Sherry Lynn grew up with him.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. Haven't met him yet, though, but I'd like to.
Do you do any research, on your family?
My family tree?
Yeah.
No, my daughter does that for me. I don't have time.
Yeah. You have to have a lot of patience to do that, It's,
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
all
I
you do
try to
get all
do
the time
some-
is no, no, no. I mean, how many times will somebody say no to you before you quit and say, I'm going to do something else?
All right. Well, since we're running late a little bit to begin with, and we'll probably finish a bit early anyway, and this looks like all we're going to get, I shall give it a go and begin. For those who don't know me, I'm John Overall. I run my own WordPress business. I've been working online for 25 plus years now. Last 10 years seriously with WordPress. And I've been working at bringing this meetup group back into something resembling a group that provides useful tips back to the community. I give a presentation once a month, or I try to sucker someone else into doing it for me. If I can't, well, I give a presentation. This month here, we're going to be giving a presentation. It's going to be on, here we go, wrong button. Oh, I know it was working 30 seconds ago. Wouldn't you know it? Let's try it again. There we go. Technical challenges. I got the internet streaming worked out, so I've actually got a really good live stream going.
These are technical opportunities.
Yeah. Technical opportunities.
And an opportunity to learn, John.
Yep. All right. I know the batteries are good. I changed them. It's the problem of not having that extra mouse. Let's put that in there. See if it'll. try it for me. Nope, you're just not going to work at all.
Is it a touch screen
All right.
TV?
Let's see if I can do it this way. There we go. We'll do it the old-fashioned way. I won't get to use a fancy pointer tonight, clicker, which usually works beautiful, but of course tonight, not a thing. All right, so the presentation tonight is on SEO 101. This is good basic SEO for anyone who is starting with their WordPress site or working to improve their WordPress SEO. A lot of what's going to be covered here is going to be the basics of everything. And where's that? There it is. Just have to follow along with my notes. It's going to be the basics and a little bit to move you into the medium area of SEO. This is by no means an advanced setup of SEO. This is just to help you understand things you need to look for, things you need to be aware of, things you might need to go through your website and deal with over time to improve its performance. So SEO 101 for WordPress, basic methods for SEO. One of the first things you need to do before you start SEO on your website is to stop, think, and prepare what you're going to do. You need to take a good look at your website as it currently stands. First, do you have a SEO plugin installed on your site? If not, you need to install one or have one installed for you. The most common one being Yoast SEO. Relatively easy to set up, but there's a lot of settings in it that most people miss. I did give a presentation earlier or late last year on Yoast SEO plugin. I've also got a video up on my YouTube channel on how to completely set up the Yoast SEO plugin. I did a complete training video. I think it's about 30 minutes in length to go through and set up the SEO plugin. You also want to think about what are you trying to accomplish with your website? What is your main goals? Is it to sell something? Is it to get people to come read your content? Is it to sell advertising? What are you doing with your website? What is your goal? So you want to make sure you write that down so that you begin to understand what you're going to have to do for research for your articles. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the main points of doing SEO on a WordPress website. And in particular, I'm going to talk about post contents. And I'm probably standing in the way of that, all right? Just let me know if I'm blocking. Just say, step to the side. And feel free, if you got questions, pop them up as I go along. Always ready to jump right in and answer questions. When you're creating a post for your WordPress SEO, one of the first things you need to do is create a descriptive title. And that title needs to be fairly descriptive in the first few words. Make it clear as to what the intention of the post is. If you want to make it clickbait, go right ahead, because that's the way the world seems to work now. I can't count the number of times I click on a title thinking I'm going to get something interesting, and I hit the article, and the title and the article are not even related to each other. You know, being clickbait, how they draw them in. You could lose visitors that way. They may never come back again. They may never trust you, but there it is. But the big thing is you want to do that. Now, you do have a length limit for these titles. And in particular, that length limit is variable, and it changes. Google's always changing the length limit they allow for titles. Last year, I believe it was 160 characters, then they dropped it to 72 characters, and they bumped it back up to 120 characters. So you can't, basically you write the title as long as you need it to be. Anything beyond the length limit will just get truncated. So you want to make sure your most important words are within the first, say, 70 characters. You know, and they could be at 140 characters. Think, if you've ever used Twitter, old Twitter, back when it was strictly 140 characters, think that's what you want to do with your titles. You want to make them very concise and to the point and give as much information as possible. Your title is your headline. We live in a world of headlines now. People think they're well informed, but all they ever do is read headlines. They never read past those. So your headline or your title is going to be one of the most important things you deal with on here. After that, you're going to want to put your next chunk of content in that first paragraph of text. That first paragraph of text, even if you create an excerpt for your post, Google may still pull from that first paragraph, or the other search engines may pull from that first paragraph. Now you have no control in reality over what the search engines are going to display for you as far as what they decide is the important chunk of text that they're going to cut up. But if you get something really good and concise in that first paragraph, you can grab your visitor's attention, grab the search engine's attention. You need to always be aware to write your content for humans. This is so important, and more important now than ever before. I know back in the early days of the internet, and the good true Wild West days of the late 90s and the early 2000s, you could stuff 1 million keywords on your page and land on first page of search engines. Those days are long gone. One of the things that helped me with my business was I never wrote or did that to my site. I always wrote my content for humans, and people used to make fun of me and said, just wait, one day it'll change. The search engines will start dealing with it as far as humans go, not machines. And that's where we're at now. They use the algorithms, they use the skip logic, they use what they call AI, which it's not truly AI, but it's just an algorithmic skip logic to determine what you're writing. And that writing needs to be something humans can understand. And that way, they give more weight to that and help move you up in the search engines on there.
Can I ask you a question, John?
Yeah.
In that first paragraph, you want to have keywords that are going to...
Oh, absolutely.
Could it all be keywords? You know, does the paragraph have to make sense?
It has to make sense for humans. All of your content has to make sense in some way or another. And yes, your keywords are important, but you want to choose not just a keyword, but a key phrase. Think about how you search for something. When you go on Google, you're looking for, let's say you're looking for a lawyer. Do you just type in lawyer and see what comes up? No, you type in
local jail.
Well, local jail, or you could type in lawyer, Victoria, personal injury, or something along that line. So you're getting very specific. And that's how people search. That's what you should be focusing on in your SEO of your title and your content, is focusing on the phrase, because nobody searches for a single keyword. You know, they might 2 keywords maybe, but most of the time it's 3, 4. Like I write entire sentences when I'm searching for something.
Yeah.
You know, I put my what I'm looking for as a question into Google or Bing or whatever search engine I happen to be using at the time. And that's where search engines have gotten, is they don't search for single words. It's all phrases.
But is a grammatical phrase?
Grammar is irrelevant to the search engines, but as far as your writing for your site, you want it to be grammatically correct. You want to be as grammatically correct as possible. You know, writing for the average reader out there in the world today, 6th grade level. You know, because it's unfortunately dropped over the years. I think once upon a time, newspapers were written for 8th grade level at one time. Now they write for 6th grade. Seriously, it's dropped down along with the average intelligence. So, but that's what you want to do, is you want to write that content like that and make sure you put your key phrases. If you can get them into your title, more the better. Get them into your first paragraph, and if possible, work it in a little bit later in there. But don't use it over and over. Use that key phrase no more than a couple of times in there, because other than that, you will be tagged for spamming by the search engines. They are really picky about that now. The other thing you're going to want to do is, as you're writing your content, think about how that content can be linked to other pages within your site. This is really important. Google likes links, internal links into your site. And I'll talk Google a lot here because unfortunately they own the market in search engines. Bing is slowly moving up to catch up to them. Give them another 5 years, Bing will be up and Google will be down. Can only hope. Not that Microsoft is any better at stuff, but I often get, there's actually two problems. Like Google gives me better technical search results, but if I want something non-technical, I need to go to Bing or DuckDuckGo because Google's results are completely skewed and in another realm. They don't even give me what I'm looking for anymore, except for technical stuff. And I don't know what's happened to them there. Anyway, create the internal links. In other words, link page A to page B to page C to page D, but make it natural. It has to be a natural link, like you're writing you're writing something that said, and you hit the end and say, contact us. Link to your contact page. If you're talking about an article about fishing and you have another article related to fishing poles, and you mention fishing poles, link to that article on fishing poles. Keep linking internally in your site. Part of what it does, it pulls the search engine in and it gets them caught in a loop inside your site, and that helps build authority in your site to see that you link to your own articles a lot. Also, for external linking, be sure that anything you're externally linking to either has a no-follow link or it is relevant to your website. This is really important. It never used to matter. You used to be able to link to anything. But Google now looks at the links from your website and what you're linking to. And if you're linking to completely irrelevant stuff, they will actually penalize you for linking to irrelevant things from your website. They'll think of you as maybe link stuffing for somebody else. There needs to be a relevant reason why you're linking to them. And that's one of the things that they actually look at and compare. I've also, as far as Google goes, as far as indexing your site, they've changed how often they will index your website and re-index your site. After the initial indexing of your site, they may go for 5-6 weeks before they'll come back and do a full index now. So it takes them longer. So you want to get as much done the first time you throw your sitemap at them. Have as much prepared, so you're not waiting for them to come back and see you again. Come on. Okay, now when you're writing your content and planning for your content, the articles you write, you need to make sure they're long enough, but not too long. A good spot for articles is 700 to 1,000 words. If you can't get that far, it needs to be at least 350 words. Anything lower than 350 words is just ignored for the most part, because there's not enough content there. It's preferable to do a 750 to 1,000 words. That's a good, if you look at a website, that's a good quarter of a page of content. You know, 750 words, good thought, takes about an hour, 2 hours to write, if you're hammering it out.
Or copy it from somebody else.
Don't do that.
No.
Don't do that, man. They have robots scouring the internet now looking for plagiarized content, and they find it fast.
You see articles all the time, and you know, especially on the health ones, there's the health article,
Mm-hmm.
and then you go to somebody else's website, it's exactly the same,
Yep.
and then somebody else is exactly the same. How does that penalising work?
What Google does with that is when they find that, the first website it appeared on gets all the credit for it. The other websites get knocked down the list as far as search goes and get penalized for it. But the first one that it appears on, that Google finds it on, is the one that gets credit for it.
Also, too, it's the only water in the desert.
Yeah.
If it's an obscure topic,
Yeah.
everyone who copies gets the same dip of obscurity,
Mm-hmm.
but you know they all end up
Yeah.
getting below the true
They
source.
all end up down in the bottom.
What if you're writing for sites?
If you're
You know,
if
actually-
you're an author for other sites,
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
usually, sometimes more than one wants to buy it. So how do you do that?
I don't know how that one works,
Just-
and
You just have to change the writing of it?
Change some of the content in it, change it up a little bit. I really don't know.
I've heard that described as the skyscraper method, where you take something someone else has done
Mhm.
and build on it.
Yeah, you
It's
can do
their
that.
starting point.
You could probably do that and get away with it. I had another thought here, and I don't have a note for it. Give me a sec here.
There's some sites that will do copy, but at least to give attribute to the source site,
Yeah,
and I don't know if that hurts or helps their rankings, but
don't know where that one falls anymore. It used to help. I don't know if it still helps or hurts anymore. Okay, where did I had a thought here instead of the title. I had something between the content and the title, and my brain slipped.
Oh, you too.
No, it's just too many things running rampant. Published. Heading images, categories, tags. So we're going again here. When you're creating the content, 700 to 1,000 words. Creating the descriptive title from the content, if you can. I know my days as a newspaper editor, when I published newspaper, I never wrote the title of the article until the article was finished. I would write the article, and then I would go through the article and pull the title out of there. Some people are completely opposite. They'll write a title, and they can write an entire article just from a title. So it's a matter of whatever your preferred skill set is on that. Considering how the content can link internally, I can't emphasize that enough. That one there is really important these days for search engines.
Can I ask you a question just on that? What do you do with like a one-page website though, where you're kind of, if you just click on there, your menu goes to a different page? That hurts your SEO, I guess.
That actually hurt. One-page websites can have a severe SEO impact because they only have one page to index,
Right.
and all the links from the thing are just hashtag or anchor tags down through there. So there's nothing for Google to follow, and so it doesn't index anything. So you're depending upon what you've written on that page or your marketing to drive people to it.
Oh, okay, but I see a lot of consultant sites that
Mhm.
look like that, right? You know, so that they, you know,
Yeah.
all on one page.
They put it all on one page.
Yeah,
That's a trend that started about 2 or 3 years ago. I thought it was the stupidest thing ever.
okay,
I still think it's dumb,
okay.
but they like it. Some people prefer to have one page. More power to them. If it works for them, it works for them. But a lot of those pages there, most of the traffic lands on them from web advertising or marketing and other methods.
Interesting, okay. Yep.
I know in my search engines, in my searches, I rarely land on a single page from a search.
So
Yeah.
if it's a parallax, whatever they call it, you know the one?
Yeah, parallax.
Does that count as different
Nope.
part?
It's one page.
It counts as one page?
It's one page.
Oh.
Because it's just a page broken up. It's just a page broken up with content. It's CSS. But in the code, it is one page. A very long page, but it's one page.
That's why they don't do very well at SEO.
Yeah, there's not much there, unless they're getting big link backs. But those pages spend a lot of money marketing in Facebook ads, Google ads, Twitter, you know, all these places. Whenever I land on one of those pages, usually I follow something from Facebook or Twitter, is how I end up on them. I can't remember landing on one of those pages from a search in Google or Bing. So, because search is dependent upon a lot of content, especially now. Okay, that thought's lost. Hopefully it'll come back to me in a bit.
Don't you find that strange that they depend on a lot of content
Mm-hmm.
and yet people read very little today?
Now, search engines read more than people do. So, I got no answer for that one. I read a lot. I usually spend my first hour in the morning just reading. You know, reading different articles and playing catch up from news from the night before. And I'll read I'll read the first couple of paragraphs of an article, and if it's good enough, I'll continue through. If the first couple of paragraphs aren't good enough, give me any information, I'll move on to another one. Because my time for reading is limited, which is most people's time. So that's why you put as much as you can in that first 2 paragraphs to keep them interested. Lists, that's what I was going for, is lists. These are ever important, is creating lists. You know, 1, 2, 3, 4, ABC, whatever, but make sure you put them in your post as numbered lists or lettered lists. The reason Google loves these lists, if you've ever done a search on a subject and you see at the top listing of Google that one that how to do it, and it's got a list, numbers, Google loves those. If you can gain authority for one of those, you can always have that first spot. So it's something to think about when you're creating your content. If your content, what you're building, has a list, like how to do it, do this, then do this, do this, and you put it as a single list and put it near the top of the content. First 3 paragraphs is where it should be, and it will really help you out. I had one of those for a while, but it's no longer relevant content, so.
And what about, if it's just bulleted?
Bulleted? Maybe. Put numbers on it, because then it gives it more standing, because bulleted is just bullets.
What about schema.org? Does that help?
If your website is putting out the schema, most WordPress websites are not putting out all the schema they could. And to do that, you're either going to have to install a plugin to deal with the schema, or go in and manually write the schema stuff in there, because the schema is not fully built into WordPress, as I'm discovering. I'm just now digging in the schema to see how I can improve it on my site, and I'm realizing, oh crap, I gotta add this, and I gotta add this.
What's schema?
Underlying metadata. It's kind of like you hit if you say you do a movie, say you look for a movie online, and Google returns movies, and it returns the star listing, the actors, and that's the underlying schema that is displayed in that listing. And
It's the metadata.
yeah, it's metadata.
Because it's organized, it's more digestible by search engines.
Yeah.
So they take it, so they reward you by showing it off.
Yeah, and recipe sites are famous for it, because if you use a recipe plugin, they have great schema in those recipe plugins, if you get a good one. You know, so the schema exists, but it's not automatic. Okay, using tools to help deal with your SEO. If you've used the Yoast SEO tool, you'll note when you're creating content, there's a box below your input. There's a box below your input that allows you to fine-tune the content from Yoast. Now, one of the biggest mistakes people make with the Yoast plugin is they try to get the green dot. Okay? Yoast allows you to get a red, yellow, or green dot, and people try to get the green dot. Now you can obtain that green dot, but by the time you obtain that green dot, you have over SEO'd your post. Way too much. You actually end up hurting yourself. It's really kind of comical, and Yoast refuses to remove that stoplight, and I understand that they're always tweaking with it to see if they can make it more improvements so that people actually get what they need by getting the green dot. So what you're looking for when you're doing it is you don't have to fill all of them, all the spots, and it gives you a lot of information of things you could do. Pick a few, you get to a green or a yellow dot, and you've reached a lot of the markers that they give you, tips they give you. Take that. Don't try for the green one, because the green one will over SEO your post. You will do way too much for it. Ensure also that you're creating an excerpt. Now this is something that most people aren't even aware of in WordPress, because the default setting for WordPress posts and pages is to have the excerpt block hidden. And if you've never dealt with the excerpt block in WordPress, that excerpt block, to get to it, when you're looking at your posting area of WordPress, and in the top right area, you'll see a little help button or a screen button.
Screen options.
Screen options, there we go. Click the screen options button, it'll drop down and it'll give you a bunch of check boxes that you can check to add additional blocks of information to your post. The one you're looking for is the excerpt box. And you need to use this excerpt box. Now the excerpt box is not available for posts, or for pages I should say. It's only available for posts default. If you want it for your pages, you've got to install a plugin to allow excerpts for pages. To me, it's dumb, but that's WordPress. Sometimes they do great things, and other times they do dumb things. So you need that excerpt box for your post. Create the excerpt. The excerpt should be, close to the first paragraph. You can use the first paragraph. I know when I'm in a hurry and I'm creating it, I usually copy my first paragraph and paste it into the excerpt box. Just so I've got it and it's done. It doesn't hurt you, but it does help you. If you can write a unique excerpt, that excerpt may get picked up by Google and the other search engines and displayed in the snippet column in the search results. So that is one of the reasons you'll want to do that, is that may be what Google picks up and uses. Not guaranteed, but it does improve your odds that you can control what they're going to display. Yeah.
So you said to use a plugin for the pages? So what plugin?
I don't remember the name of it now. I would have to look it up, and I've used it. I haven't used it in a while. I think I've got it installed on my website, but I'd have to go dig through the plugins to see.
Look up WordPress plugins excerpt.
Yeah, just look up excerpt for pages in WordPress plugins. So the excerpt is useful. In the Yoast tool, in the Yoast block area, there's a meta area where you can, it'll show you what should be displayed by Google. It'll tell you what Google should be using for the title, what Google should be using for a link, what Google should be using for the excerpt that it's going to display. I think that's the three areas. You can go in and modify those in the Yoast tool. And again, you may get lucky and Google may use what you modify it to. Not a guarantee, because Google has a bad habit. The title is what they almost always use correct. But anything else, that extra bit of text, Google can just randomly pull it from the middle of your post. And I've seen that happen on many posts. It's like somewhere in the center, they pull out the line. And they usually do that depending upon what someone was searching for. It's like I'll be searching for something, it'll come up and it'll see there, and I'll click on the post, and I'm scanning the post to find out where in this post did they find this line of text that matched my search result.
You know, a website that I inherited that was on WordPress.com. WordPress.com used to have a small description on the site that was very well into the depths of its menu system.
Yeah.
And that's what Google picked up. And it took forever to get that changed.
Yeah. So you have no control over it. You just do what you can to try to influence it as much as you can. The other great thing you can do with the Yoast tool is they have a tab for Facebook and Twitter controls. And you can go into that per post and set this. Now this will be information that is used when someone shares that post on Twitter or Facebook. You know, if they click the button that says share this to social media, that information that you put in there for the Twitter or the Facebook tab is what will be picked up and delivered to Facebook and Twitter when they share your post. And you can go in there, and for Facebook one, you can create the title and description. And with the Facebook one, it'll grab either the featured image for your post, and if there's no featured image, it will grab the first image it can find on the page. So you always want to set a featured image on your post, always. For the Twitter one, it'll grab the title and description, and again, the featured image or the first image it can find. Now, one of the things you'll want to do with your Yoast tool is you'll want to go into the settings of the Yoast tool and set how Twitter uses the image. There's two different types of images that Twitter uses. when people share with Twitter using the share button. The first image is they call the small card, which if you've seen tweets, they've got a little small image and a tweet next to it. And then the large card, which has that large image and the tweet information underneath it. You want to use the large image. It stands out better in a Twitter feed. So, you could also consider using separate images for Twitter and Facebook. And the way to do that is in the Yoast tool, you can set a default image for it to use.
Why?
What's that?
Why would you do that?
You might have a different way of showing things to Twitter as you do to Facebook. I haven't thoroughly tested this one yet, but they're different audiences.
Okay.
Facebook and Twitter are completely different audiences.
And Facebook will not
You and I
defend
should
you.
know that.
What's that?
She's off Facebook.
I'm not on
I'm not
Facebook.
really on Twitter. So.
Oh, see, you use Twitter, he uses Facebook. So
Yeah.
See, there you go, two different audiences. So they're often not shared. Okay, this is another key item here, is a single author for all articles, unless you have multiple authors contributing to your website. And how this one works out to people is I find it when I go to take over a website or I work on a website that somebody's hired multiple developers for. And the multiple developers have created accounts over time. They never removed the developers' accounts. They never reattributed content that developers had to create. So the content is attributed to this developer that created this, or, and so they got like articles that are spread out and they're not united. I just did that with my most recent site launch for the Lambert Law Office. When I dug in there, a third of their articles were attributed to Lambert Law, another third were attributed to the office manager, another third were attributed to a couple of different developers over time. So what we had to do is consolidate it all down so that it's all one author. And the author setting is the user account that creates the post, is what I'm talking about here. Not in the case of like Lambert Law, they've got their interns writing the article, so their interns get a byline in the article. The byline is different than the author post, the author credit that is given by WordPress. The byline is kind of like reading a newspaper. You go down, you've got the byline of the author. The article, though, is published by the newspaper name. And this is what I'm comparing it to. So you want to make sure that all your articles are published by the same user account, unless you have multiple users contributing articles to your website, and they need to have that information to give them the benefit of SEO for going out to other websites that they might be using. I know when I had contributing authors to my website, they could leave links back to their own websites and leave links to other things that they were doing. So you want to do that, bring it down to one author for all the articles. The other thing that happens is over time, Google looks at the authors in the site and starts to give authority to that site for content and give authority to a specific author for content. So as time goes on, you start writing about a particular niche. Maybe you're writing about the crazy bicycle lanes in Victoria, and you start getting a niche into that area, then you become the authority. And anytime a news piece comes up about that, Google goes first to your website to see if you have something to say on it. Because they got two types of bots out there right now. Google has the long-term bots, which go in and do the full indexing of your site and follow, move the links around. Then they have the fast bots, the bots that come and hit stuff looking for news items. And those only come in and look for the news items, they're gone. They're not looking to index your site, they're looking for something. Like say if you write about the crazy bicycle lanes and all of a sudden that becomes a pop news item in Facebook or Twitter or somewhere else, they'll hit your site and say, hey, this guy's got authority on this. Has he got anything? Oh, he does, here. Somebody searches for crazy bicycle lanes, pop, you're number one in Google for that period of time. It'll be short-lived, but it could still bring you lots of traffic if you're writing in niche areas that become newsworthy.
So when you have a guest author, you put that as a byline that the author is?
Yeah, I put it as byline now. If I let guest authors in, I'll publish the article as johnoverall.com, because that's my main account, and they'll get a byline title just above the title, or just under the title, like a normal newspaper. I'll give them a byline in there. I won't give them a full author credit anymore. Okay, additional tips. Okay, when you're going through everything on your post, you're going to want to deal with categories and tags. I got more on that, on those two items coming up here in a little bit. But first, I'm going to talk a little bit about image size and metadata for images. Now, image size is something that I've only took seriously myself in about the last year and a half. I used to ignore it. I used to say, I'll just throw an image in, any image will do. Doesn't matter if it's big, WordPress makes all the smaller images. Well, that's no longer the case, and no longer can you do something like that. You have to pay attention to image sizes. And I'm not just talking the dimensions of the image, because dimensions are irrelevant. You could have a 5,000 pixel image by 5,000 pixels, and it could only be 21K in size. And that's what I'm talking about, is I'm talking about the file size. It's not uncommon for me to take over a website or inherit a website and they've got some slow loading issues, and then when I look at their images, they're loading these 3, 4, and 5 meg image files. They're huge. Beautiful images, but you can compress them down or throw them back into Photoshop, shrink them, change the DPI on the image from, they're usually 350 DPI images. This means by downloaded it's print worthy. Change them to web worthy, 72 DPI. All of a sudden it goes from 5 meg to 300K just by changing the DPI. And on the internet, people will not notice the difference, because anything over 72 DPI is pretty much lost, because most screens do not see above that unless they're dealing with retina images. And then if you want retina images, you just double the pixels. And that's all the retina does, is take a double size image and press it down, make it look pretty. So image size is important. You want to stick that in there. You'll want to know what image sizes your theme needs and produces. And in particular, how this works. And I did this recently for a site I launched. The theme we used, the main image to be uploaded needed to be 1500 by 1500 pixels. And then all the other, I think it has 8 different smaller images it uses for displaying on the front page, for displaying in post titles, for displaying in footers. You'll see places where the image sizes are small to large and square to length and everything else. But what happens when you upload an image to WordPress, it takes that image and it crops it. And depending on the code and the theme, it will create, like a default WordPress creates 4 images from one upload. I think it's 4 images. But some themes have as many as 10, 15, 20. One newspaper theme I use, you can set it up and it will create 22 different sized images, depending on what you turn on for it. And they are used in different areas on the site. So this one theme in particular created 7 images. But it was a 15 by 1500 start image. And then it would create a 12 by 430, it would create an 800 by 800, it would create a 70 by, 150 by 70. It created multiple sizes. But what I needed to do with that 1500 by 1500 image was I had to have that image already compressed to the max. And also know where the content needed to be in that image, so when it got cropped, the important content was always in the center, or always within the crop zones. So these are things you'll want to understand about your WordPress theme. Whatever theme you're using, you're going to have to go research that theme and find out how they use the images and how they crop images and what you do for them. And what the original starting image size should be. Because you should only need to upload one image to get all your smaller ones. So make sure your image is small, compressed. I use Photoshop or Fireworks for doing my photo editing. There's lots of other free sources of compressing images. There's websites out there where you can upload an image to that. They'll compress it and send it back to you. I'm still not sure what they're doing with them, but I just have very small faith in those free services. Because it's a simple thing, if it's free, you're the product.
Paint.net is a pretty good graphics editor, but it's got a steep learning curve. Paint.net.
Paint.net. Never heard of that one.
It's a open source one.
Oh, okay. I know of GIMP. I think there was one called GIMP.
Yeah, GIMP is still around, but I like Paint.net better.
Yeah. Well, give Paint.net a try if you don't want to pay for it. I pay for the Adobe Suite because I need a lot of their software. I was really sad when Macromedia sold out to Adobe. And then Adobe killed almost all Macromedia's products.
Yeah, they killed Fireworks, but then left it around in the back door.
Actually,
you can get it.
They've got a 2016 version.
Yeah.
They updated it to 2016, then killed it, and they can keep it, but you gotta really hunt for it.
Yeah, I found that.
They made it so hard to find. I was so choked because I use Fireworks a lot.
Oh, Fireworks.
Fireworks is fantastic. It was designed for creating web graphics. That's all you use it for, creating web graphics. It's much more efficient, faster, and smoother than Photoshop. Photoshop is overkill for web graphics.
Should we use this as a link of how to get that?
Adobe, you gotta have the Adobe Suite.
Oh.
And in the Adobe Suite, you have to go into your account and you have to enable a box that says enable legacy products. And once you enable the legacy products, the little Adobe Suite window you download products for, Fireworks will appear there. It's really a hard thing to find. It's not easy to find. It was like 3 pages deep in my profile somewhere.
Yeah.
I spent an hour and following several different videos online before I found it.
Well, we've got our CS5 disc, so that's got it on there.
Yeah, well, that's got. I've still got mine too.
Some of the Obama era, so it's still
Yeah.
I've
good.
still got my last time I bought Adobe, I paid $1,800 for the suite.
I'm still using CS5.
Yeah, I was too until I was getting too many files delivered to me in the latest formats. So, okay, metadata for photos. Now this is an important item too. When you upload that photo to WordPress, doesn't matter how you do it, if you do it through a post or whatever, it gives you the option, once you upload the photo, it gives you the option to fill out a title, a description, a caption, and title, description, caption, there's one more. Alt text, thank you. You want to fill out everything but the caption, unless you plan on using a caption on that picture. Once you fill out the caption, it will dump it onto the page underneath your post, and it's usually not formatted very nicely. You usually have to work at it a bit. But the alt text is really important, because the alt text is to do with ADA type of requirements, so that anyone using a screen reader knows what your image is. So you want to fill that out. The title, it will take the title, initially create the title from your file name. So when you save your photo, you want to save your photo with a short, very descriptive file name. It's like if you're writing a blog about apple pies, you don't want to label, and you're uploading 3 images of apple pies, you don't want to go apple pie 1, apple pie 2, apple pie 3. You want to say maybe apple pie 1 is apple and rhubarb. You know, you want to label it apple and rhubarb pie, and then the other one's maybe apple strawberry or something. Give it more descriptive. Don't give it a whole big long line of words. My pictures will sometimes have a short phrase in there, you know, but I don't let it get too long. So you'll want to do that, and that'll be the initial title it gives the image. If it doesn't work for you, change that title to something more descriptive. And again, the description of it, make the description pretty clear. I usually use the description and the alt text are usually the same on my images. Now, I heard recently, it used to be understood that Google indexed this metadata for images. I heard recently that they don't index it anymore, so I don't know, but it used to be a benefit in your SEO to have this content in your images. But I just heard recently, this last week, and one of the SEO people I follow, they said that Google's no longer giving this as much weight as it used to.
They just keep changing it up so that people have to keep.
Yes.
It's an arms race.
It's an arms race.
Yeah, and economy
It's just-
too.
They wanna make as much money as they can, and they don't want you to make any money.
They need you to buy ads. You know, they don't make money off the search. They make money off of their ads in the search.
And that's why the Google has now, they've removed so much stuff, so that when you go for a search, you can't find it on the first 20 pages or so.
Okay, keep clicking. Yeah. So, again, fill that metadata out, set it up. The rules may change again to where that stuff becomes important. I've seen them toss rules. I've seen them put them back. They change it, and they change it again, and they change it back. I've just stayed with all of these things over the years, and sometimes my search rankings go up, sometimes they come down. They go up, they come down. I've never been in the SEO race for my website, so I just try and write content that people want to read. I haven't written a lot of content in the last year and a half, which is part of the reason why my traffic has dropped. But I used to write a lot of content. So if you write a lot of content and it's good content that people come to read, that will just carry you along naturally.
Is Google transparent about their criteria? Like,
No.
No, they don't tell you.
Oh, so dense.
They're obtuse.
So there's nowhere you can go and read what they're looking. No. Interesting.
You can follow. I don't know who is it still. What's his name? That crazy guy who was in charge of Google search for
Matt Cutts?
Matt Cutts. Is he still in charge of it?
No, I think he's gone to the government.
Oh,
I think that somebody.
well, that's a good place for him.
Yeah. But everyone guesses, and that's the worst part. Is you hear these experts guess because they're looking at the outside.
So it's a lot of trial and error.
It's a lot of trial and error, but there's a lot of standard stuff that does work, and it does improve things.
The problem is if Google was transparent, then the games player that would try and take advantage of it.
Well, back in the beginning, they were very transparent.
Yeah.
Like I've been using Google since the day it launched.
Yeah, and we
You
still.
know, I was ecstatic. I can't remember the old search engines that Google killed. God, what were their names?
Oh, they're so good.
Yahoo.
Ask Jeeves?
Web crawler.
Yeah, yeah.
Northern
That's
Lights,
Jeeves. But anyway,
Yahoo.
Alta Vista.
oh, that's it. Alta Vista was my
Yeah,
go-to
Alta
at the
Vista.
time. But the thing is like I needed tech content and other content, and these other search engines never provided it. But Google came out, typed in what I wanted, bang, right there on the front page. So, and they were very transparent about how rankings were at the time. Rankings were based upon links. The more links that pointed to a site, the more relevant it was, the higher it was in the rankings. But of course, it didn't take long for that to be gained.
Yeah.
And so what they had to do is they had to start evolving their algorithm. And now it is so evolved now that I'm sure they don't even know what's happening in it. And they change one thing and they wipe out people's businesses overnight. Happens all the time. People work hard to get up there in the rankings. They tweak one thing in the algorithm. All these people dump from the rankings. And all these people that were buried are at the top.
Just like all those people that were relying on Facebook for their business
Yeah.
traffic, and then Facebook changes something and suddenly they're
God,
toast.
yeah, you can't rely on this. You use this as a secondary thing. If you're relying on a third-party source for your income, at any point in time, they can yank the rug out from under you, and it's gone. You have to do your own marketing in multiple ways. The best marketing, truly, is the newsletter, is email newsletters. That is still king, believe it or not. The people who make the most money on the internet have massive email lists, and they email them, their customers, on a weekly or bi-weekly or monthly basis, depending on how tolerant their clients are of getting emails from them. So, the email list is king over everything else. But you can't toss out search SEO, because SEO is still helpful. Again, just to re-emphasize the fact, excerpts for your post, very important. They do help. I noticed that when I started doing them on my site. I went for a long time and didn't use excerpts, and then I started doing them. I started noticing increases in traffic to pages that they were on. I've still got content that's old on my site that's never got excerpts, and it doesn't get as much traffic. Metadata. The metadata in the images, the metadata in the post, you can tweak and mess with the metadata to some extent, depending on the settings of your theme and any additional plugins you have for it. And that just varies. Okay, image SEO. I think I actually covered that already. Things to look at for images, again, SEO in your images, optimization of your images. Optimize them until within a millimeter of life. Squeeze those things, and then in the end, squeeze them again. One of the things I do is I squeeze them to the point that I can, and I have a plugin on my website. I use Smush for image compression, and when they get uploaded to my site, they get smushed again. I smush them and smush them and smush them until I can't squeeze another kilobyte out of them without affecting how they look. Your site speed is massively important, and it is massively impacted by your images. And not just the size of the images, but how many you are loading per page. This one here is really important. Many people have on their website, they have a blog page, a landing page for their blog, where they list up 20 or 50 posts or whatever, and each of those posts has an image displaying with it. Now they're small images, maybe, but they're small in size. They might not be small in file size. But all those images have to load. That slows down the page. So be aware of how many images are loading on your page and what size they are. File names for the images, again, use good descriptive file names. One of the reasons for the good descriptive file names, if you set up your pictures to be indexed, allow your pictures to be indexed, which is not a bad idea to do, especially since Google just changed the image search. And what happens now is when someone clicks on that image, it takes them to your website where that image is located, instead of just popping the window. This is something new that they've changed recently.
Yeah, in relation to Getty, when Getty signed on and allowed the images to be indexed,
Yeah.
as long as they didn't allow them to be directly scooped.
Yeah. So that's what they want, and that's what they've done. So it can help you out quite a bit. So give a good descriptive name to your image. You could rank high in images, which could drive traffic. Like I do a lot of image search sometimes when I'm looking for something. If I can't find what I'm looking for in text, but sometimes I'll search for an image and I'll find what I'm looking for in the image. So alt text, captions, titles. Again, make sure all of that is filled out. Featured versus embedded images. And I think I touched briefly on the featured image. For every WordPress post or page you make, you can set a featured image. That featured image is the image that is used on the blog post page. It's the image that's default used when the article is shared on Facebook and Twitter, etc., etc. Embedded images is the images you put in line with your content. Those are embedded images. And they are handled differently by your WordPress setup. One of the things that happens when you upload an image to a post, that image gets attached to the post if it's embedded in there. If it's set as a featured image, it's not attached to the post. And that can also be different in the sitemaps that are created by the Yoast tool. So these are little things to deal with. So just understand that they are two different things. And you do want to use both. I use both. Sometimes my featured image is the same image I embed in the post. More often than not, actually. So my image is not only the featured, but it is embedded or is attached to the post.
Is there any way of changing the title of the file for your image in WordPress?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, you have to unload it and load it up again.
Oh, you just upload a new image with a different file name. So I make sure you do your file name before, because not that I'm aware of within WordPress. It's like you can get a plugin that will allow you to access files to change file names, but that's pretty dangerous to do. Change the wrong file name, your whole site disappears. Well, it doesn't disappear, but it makes it very hard to use. Add an image. Add image compressor plugin. As I mentioned, I use Smush from WPMU Dev. It's a premium plugin. There are free ones out there. I recommend WP Smush. Works very, very well. Another good one is EWW Image Optimizer. It's free, but it doesn't work on every hosting provider because it needs some special image libraries, graphic libraries to run. WP Compress, they're a really good one. I reviewed them, about 3 months ago I reviewed their plugin. They're like WP Smush, they're a third-party service. They come in, your images actually go to them, they compress them, they come back to you. There's a few of them out there, a few third-party services that have limited free, where they'll allow you to compress maybe 50 images a month. So if you're very low volume, might not be a bad deal, but if you've got a lot of back images to compress, it could take you a while to get them done. So there's a lot of ways to get it, but you do want to download and activate a compression plugin for your images, just so you can squeeze that extra little bit out of the image. Okay, blog posting SEO. Now I've covered up a few of these, but a few I haven't. I've talked about the title, permalink, and dates. I haven't talked about these. Every post you make creates a permalink. That permalink has to be unique. It cannot be duplicated anywhere throughout WordPress. And it doesn't matter if you create a post we're going to use contact as the simplest one. This is the most duplicated permalink out there. Because you'll create a contact for this, you'll create a contact here. I've seen contact posts, contact pages, and I've seen contact categories. Every one of those gets a permalink. The first one will be contact blank, nothing after. Next one will be contact -1, contact -2. So every time that is used, every time you see a permalink and you see a dash number added after it, somewhere in your site, you've already used that name for a permalink. You want to avoid that. It does not truly duplication as far as search engines go, but it could be confusing. And it can also be confusing in the fact that WordPress has a built-in redirect system in it. And how this works is if you erase a permalink, create a new page with a slightly similar permalink name, and someone searches for that, or they search for the original, it'll go to your new one. And it's built into WordPress. It's actually kind of cool. It works nice sometimes, but other times it directs me to something I don't want it to do, and it's a real pain to get it to change. So just be aware it's there. So you want to pay attention to your permalink. You can change your permalink anytime you want in a post. It's located just under the title. Under the title setting, you'll see it says permalink, and you can click on it to edit it, and you can change it to anything you want. Its default setting is whatever you created for your title is default for the permalink. Now, one of the things you'll want to look at doing is you will want to add a plugin to remove stop words. Yoast had something built in, then they took it out, then they made it optional, I'm not sure if it's in there and working now. But there are plugins to remove stop words. And stop words are like and, but, or, yes, no, really common words that are just pointless. You want them removed from your permalink. You don't need them there. Google ignores them. If you write a question asking and, well, unless you put it in quotes, they look for stop words and, but, or, all of the common things like that. They just eliminate them when they do the search. They don't even look for those words in the search because they're just common everyday words. So you'll want to get them removed from your permalink because your permalink is that link that shows up in Google and that gets indexed. Headings, images, and content around them. So when you're also writing your post, I mentioned using lists. You also want to use headings. H1, H2, H3, H4 tags. This builds a hierarchy of content. Now be aware, again, this is theme dependent. The H1 tag, when the post is made and it takes the title you created and it puts that at the top of your post, that's an H1 tag. There should never be more than one H1 tag on a post. If you've got multiple H1 tags to your post, Google thinks you're spamming. Because H1 is considered the top #1 piece of title for that entire page. So there should only be one H1 tag. Now you can use H2 through H8 as much as you want. You may want to use H2 an awful lot. After the title H1, then start subcontenting or breaking your content into chunks using the H2 tag. And if you break additional subsections, like you break H2 title 1, and then underneath you're going to create your list, the title of the list should have an H3 tag. And then your list. So this is what you'll want to do. You'll want to create your H tags all the way through, create your hierarchy very carefully. Think about it as you're writing it. I usually write the stuff in Microsoft Word and then I copy and paste. I rarely ever write my content direct into WordPress. I learned my lesson the hard way. And what I do, I think I wrote one article, got it really nice, and something happened in my browser, refreshed, I hadn't saved, poof, it's gone.
How long did it take you to learn about that?
What's that?
How long did it take you to learn that you could lose the whole thing if you weren't careful?
I learned it probably in my first 6 months of working WordPress. And then I started writing in Word so that I could save it. The other reason I did that was so I could have an archive copy in my folders, because I write multiple articles. The other thing I do is I start writing articles. I've got probably 20 articles that are in various stages of being written, because I'll get in a mood to write and I'll just keep writing and I'll be stalled and I won't finish it. It just sits there and waits. Okay, and again, excerpts, deal with the excerpts and the author. Set your site author down to 1. Okay, category tips. This is where we're going to talk about using categories in WordPress. Categories, and then we'll talk about tags. Okay, categories. Everyone knows what categories are in WordPress, right?
I think so.
Okay, they're only available to your posts. Unless you add a plugin or do some custom coding in your theme, then you can add categories to pages. I don't really recommend adding categories to pages because pages don't really need categories. Pages are supposed to be for static content, specific items. You're not supposed to have multi-layered stuff in there. Okay, what is a category in WordPress? Categories are how you're going to organize your content in your site. I think of categories like chapters in a book. Each chapter has a very specific section that it covers. In that chapter, you can have subcategories or subchapters. And you'll want to create these categories out and subcategories out. The categories do have SEO benefits. People can also follow your categories. I have a category. One of the things I use a category for is I have a white label plugin I put into websites that I develop, and it creates a block on the dashboard so that when I post certain articles on my website, they show up in this dashboard of my client sites to give them tips, information, and also a way for them to come contact me. I have categories for my podcasts. I have categories for SEO articles. I have categories for hacker articles or fixing articles. So these categories you'll want to set up and use for everything you're going to do. Everything you break your website out into, set them as categories. If that category you're working on has subcategories in it, start adding the subcategories. Now what can happen with those categories is every category has an RSS feed. In case you didn't know it with WordPress, every section of WordPress has its own RSS feed. All you have to do is wherever you're at in WordPress, type /RSS after it, and you will, or /feed after it, not RSS, /feed, and you will get the RSS feed that you can use in multiple ways. Some people, many people, use an RSS reader and follow RSS feeds for authors of websites that they find interesting. So they don't have to receive emails. They just get an RSS feed notice and they go look in their RSS feed. Many people do that. I don't, but I know lots of other people that do. So it's a major benefit. Search engine benefits, because the search engines, when you use Yoast, it creates a separate sitemap for your category articles. So all of your articles that are just listed as posts are also listed as WP plugins, A to Z show. And those get indexed in a separate sitemap. So you get lots of site benefits for using them. The other thing about categories is if you look at the menus on my website, it looks like they're all pages. Some of the links there actually take you to categories of information, to display information. I have a menu item that takes people to, podcasts. Takes them to listen to my podcast. That is a category. It's a menu item. I just give it a proper name versus the category name. So there's lots of ways you can use categories. And this helps also with Google and indexing of your website because it gives more internal linking of your website by linking in through the categories. You'll want to create the hierarchical structure of your menu, of your categories. Basically, if you're not too far into your website, before you start doing this, sit down and think about the category structure. I've had to redo my category structure probably 3 times in the last 10 years. Because every time I would do something, I'd go down a path and I'd find out I was dead-ending because I didn't take the time to think far enough out as to how this category was going to be used in the end. So you'll want to think it out and plan it out and think about how the titles you use for your categories and subcategories could be a benefit in SEO in finding your content. The other thing with categories is when you're setting them up, you get the ability to customize the description for the category. Avoid using duplication. You can add a plugin to add an image to the category, or some themes add an image to the category for you. Make it very descriptive in the category. that title may or may not show on the category page. You can make it show up on a category page, and again, sometimes this is theme dependent, but that content shows up in the back end that Google indexes. Because Google doesn't see what your visitors see. It sees everything in behind all of that content. It sees all the HTML code, it sees all the JavaScript codes, it sees everything back there. This description is buried in the code and shows up in the code. Don't go more than 2 levels deep in your categories. If you're going more than 2 levels deep, you need to start using tags or more tags. Google follows the chain of your categories. If it picks one up from category A or category A, subcategory A, subcategory AB, if it follows here, it will follow the chain back up to your site. So it can follow around. So again, if you get more than 2 levels deep, start use tags. Categories can also be used in your breadcrumbs if you use breadcrumbs. Breadcrumbs are beneficial. They do help with SEO, and they do help with internal links, because those breadcrumbs are internal links to your website, and Google picks those up as internal links, and it follows those breadcrumbs around. So use them if you can. If they don't seem relevant for your site, don't give them too much stress, because not every site needs or can use breadcrumbs. If it's a simple site, breadcrumbs are mostly redundant. If it's a really complex website where they can land on one page that's over here and you need them over here, they can see the breadcrumb and it might help them find their way home.
What is a breadcrumb?
If you're on a website, you'll see it mostly on newspaper sites, and you'll see a thin line at the top showing the website name, the category of news you're in, the subcategory, and then the article name.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
That's the breadcrumbs. And you can click on any one of those to pop back to those specific spots in the theme or in their website. So you can use the categories for creating breadcrumbs, and they're very useful for it. I have used them. I'm not sure if my website has breadcrumbs right now. It might not. I turn things on and off. I'm always experimenting. I'm actually in the process of rebuilding my website again. I think it's only been 2 years since the last time I did it. It's like a mechanic's car.
Sorry, what is your website?
johnoverall.com.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Nice and simple to find. Or go to wppluginsa2z.com. That's where my podcast is at. And that's where all the stuff about plugins goes now. I used to keep it all on John Overall, but as my podcast grew an audience, I decided it needed its own website.
So what is that one?
wppluginsa2z.com.
Thanks.
And for my American listeners, A to Z.
And is it E the number 2 or is it T-O?
Either or. It's T-O, but I had to buy the number 2 because many people were hunting for the number 2, so now I have both domains. I also got WPP plugins because I typoed one time in a very important marketing plan. So I had to go buy the domain. So what happens, I'm glad I did so that somebody else didn't capitalize on the typo, because it's an easy typo. WPPP. So. All right, things to look over. You'll want to inventory your categories and tags. Actually, was I in the right spot or did I skip one? Yeah, okay. Okay. You want to take an inventory of your categories and tags that you currently have, if you're already using them. And tags they're good and they're bad. Tags are a separate thing from the categories. And I've been using tags off and on over the years. Sometimes they help, sometimes they don't. I've experimented with using too many tags. I've experimented with using not enough. I don't know if it helps or not. I try to use at least 3 to 5 tags per post now. And tags are basically additional keywords focused for that post. And you want to avoid using more than 5, although I probably break that rule more often than I should. But avoid using more than 5 because it can look like you're spamming. You know, if your keywords, if the words you're putting in there are too similar, saying the same thing.
It's like a Twitter post that has 15 hashtags on it.
Exactly. Yeah. And keywords are similar like that. You'll want to sit down and list the stuff on paper so you can actually see it, so you know what you're doing with it. When you're setting up your categories, if you haven't already set them up, you'll notice that there's a default category in WordPress that says default, I believe. You know, which is like really dumb. I should say general or something. You cannot delete that category. It's undeletable. I don't know, I tried to change categories for the default the other day to see, but it seems like you used to be able to change default categories. I couldn't do it. So I don't know if they removed it or it's the theme I'm using or what it is. But what I usually do is I go rename the default category to something more usable. I usually make the default category my general information or general data, or I usually start with general something because default is just dumb. But general info or general articles, or if you have a site and you often have an article that just goes into general information, that's what the default category should be used for. The other thing is when you initially create a post, the default is usually where it goes. If you forget to check a category, it goes right into the default category, whatever your default category is set at. So you'll want to reset that to something. Make a plan for changes. As we've mentioned, Google, Bing, everyone's always changing the rules. Yoast is always working to try and keep up with those changes and make your life a little easier. Though, of course, their main goal is to sell you the Yoast SEO Premium plugin and their own courses and stuff. So they're only going to do so much for the free plugin. You do want to be prepared that things are eventually going to change, and they change at a rate about every 6 months to 8 months. Things are constantly in flux and changing. I follow maybe half a dozen decent SEO people on the internet that put out lots of content on a regular basis, so that helps keep me up to date.
Is there some way you can get a list of those, or?
I could try. I subscribed to their newsletters a long time ago, and I get the newsletters and I read them. Sometimes I'll skim them and they're out of my mind.
Right.
But I could try to create a list of them.
Oh, thanks.
So yeah, just make sure you've planned for changes. Decide what's needed on your website, what is not needed. I know that discussing with my office manager today, she was finding stuff and she's reading. I was like, wow, I forgot I even put that in that website. So my website is now 12 years old, 10 years old. So I've got content going. No, it's longer than that. 2000. How old am I? My boys. 12. Yeah, 12. It's as old as my oldest son. So turning 12 this year. So it's got content going way back, and at one point in time I used it for personal content, you know, along with my business content. So I've got personal content buried deep in there.
Photographs of your girlfriends?
What's that?
Photographs of your girlfriends?
No photographs of my girlfriends, but my World of Warcraft podcast is still on there. I think I managed to create 20 episodes before I gave it up. You know, I've got other miscellaneous things. Oh, it was spam poetry. I used to make spam poetry. I used to take my spam emails and I'd take one line out of each spam email and I'd turn it into a poem. It's really quite entertaining. So that's what I used to do. It was for fun, but that went on my website. So miscellaneous stuff. You want to go through and clean your site up from time to time. Be careful of what you toss out. You may want to get yourself signed up on the Google console or Google Analytics and examine if the stuff you want to remove has got lots of traffic coming to it, you know, or check it with other sources. What do I use? I had a plugin for a long time, but it eventually became too bloated to use. I think it was Count Per Day. It was a very good plugin until they bloated it up with a bunch of stuff and it started slowing down my site. Double check your Yoast settings. Make sure your Yoast settings are up to date because they always change that thing. They do updates. They add settings, they take away settings, they change the way the settings are. So what you set up, like I didn't touch my Yoast for a couple of years one time. And then when I went in there, I found out that it was completely set up wrong because I just been updating it and not worrying about it. That's one of the things I'm discovering more and more now. As you update plugins, you have to go back to that plugin setting tables and make sure that the settings didn't change on you or they didn't add new settings and take away settings on you. And this is becoming pretty common as plugins mature. So some final thoughts on this. Plan before you implement what you're going to do. Don't just dive in unless you're willing to risk having your site tank in the SEO rankings. If you've got okay SEO rankings right now, make sure you plan what you're going to do before you dive in and do it. If you've got lousy rankings, it really won't matter. You can do whatever you want. So make sure you know where you're at, but make a plan on what you're going to do. Make a plan on what kind of people are you trying to attract. What are those people looking for? You can do keyword research in multiple areas. There's lots of free sites. There's some for Google Analytics. Do they still offer it through Google Analytics?
Yeah, they do.
Okay, so you can do keyword research through Google Analytics. If you have Google AdWords account, they significantly offer you lots of keyword research. So there's lots of ways to do it. Do your keyword research. Think ahead. Keep humans in mind with everything you're writing. Everything you do for your site. Think about if someone was looking for me, how would they look for me? If I was looking for this content, how would I look for this content? I've always based most of my stuff on, if I was looking for this, how would I look for it? And that's usually what has done well for me. Keep your SEO natural on the site. Don't overuse keywords. Don't overuse H1 tags. Don't overuse anything. If it seems like, if you get the feeling you're overusing something, you probably are. So you'll want to step back from it. And of course, plan your work, work your plan for what you're going to do. That's really the only way to get to it.
And call John.
Absolutely. Time for me to start an SEO thing, yeah. I don't know so much about that. So any other questions? Anything else?
Yeah, it's just kind of generally, I guess, a friend of mine's got a site that is really old. I think it's like a site builder platform or something. But it actually ranks pretty well on Google. But he's like thought about redoing it and making, it's not a WordPress site right now, but like converting it or changing it up. But he was wondering how that's going to affect him rankings of Google. And
Could cause his rankings to tank.
Right. So how is there a way to kind of?
Yes. He's in for a lot of work.
Okay.
He's going to have to list up every one of his URLs for his pages. He's going to have to redirect all those URLs in WordPress. He's going to have to install a redirect plugin to create all the redirects for all his pages. Does he have tons of pages or just a few?
No, it's not that many, like 5.
Oh, well then he'll be all right.
Okay.
So not so bad. So he'll just have to redirect those pages and make sure he's got everything completely set up in his dev site before he takes down his HTML site and replaces it with WordPress. So he should build his entire site in a dev environment first, and then make the switch over as fast as possible, and go into the Google Web Console and resubmit a new sitemap to them, so that they can come index him relatively quickly. But make sure you have the redirects, because he could have people linking to those pages, which is partly why he may have good traffic. So what will happen is if he doesn't have redirects, those pages will break, and that will cause a tank in SEO, is the broken links.
Is there a way to see what pages link to?
Yes, there are tools out there that will allow you to find out what your what your link backs are. And some of them are paid, some of them are free. I get the information through WP Commander. CMS Commander is what I use. I use CMS Commander for managing sites, and they offer it to me as part of my package.
With only 5 pages, you could actually do a Google search on the URL without the HTTPS in front.
Yeah, you could.
That might give some of the pages.
So, anything else?
Yeah, you mentioned clickbait.
Clickbait.
How do you, that is so frustrating when you go, you look something up and it's got nothing to do with, how do you, is there a way around that?
Not for the people that are writing it.
And why doesn't Google do something about that?
They will.
They try.
If they haven't, they're in the process of figuring it out.
Right.
It's like every black hat technique that's ever been done, initially it works quite well, and some of them have worked for a couple, 3 years. But then Google finally figures it out. They implement a fix, and all those sites tank. It's the reason I don't have my content farm websites anymore. I'm sure you know about content farm websites. It's what, 3-4 years ago now, isn't it?
What's content for?
Oh, it must be 3 or 4 years. That's why. 3 or 4 years ago, you could make, I used to pull in through Google AdWords, or AdSense. I used to pull in through Google AdSense $300 to $1,000 a month for simple websites I built with articles on them that I pulled from article factories. Okay, because there are tons of article factories out there. They still exist. There are places that write articles, authors that submit articles. You can copy the article, paste it into your website. All you got to do is give a link back to the article, to the author's page. It's very simple. They still exist. I can't remember the name of them, but what it did was allowed me to create websites of articles in very specific niches, just gathering from these link farms. And there's tools to automate the process, made it even better. It just went and grabbed the article, created the post for me, and published it. I didn't have to do a thing, because I built the initial website. And then what I would do is I'd display Google ads on the site. And I think I had 10 of those sites. And I would clear $300 to $1,000 a month through content farms, is what they're called. And they ranked high in Google. They ranked beautifully. And then Google finally figured out a way to kill them. And they did. They killed off an entire industry. Because of course, most of the time those articles were like clickbait. Not much use to the person looking for an answer. You know. But it was a way to make some extra money. And I did it. You know. Probably wasn't.
Quite the wave.
Yeah, I caught the wave for a little while. The people that got in earlier were making, you know, $5,000, $10,000 a month. You know, thought they were on a gravy train. Well, they were on a gravy train, but that gravy train eventually comes to an end. Especially with search. And that's what's going to happen to the clickbait. Eventually it's going to get tanked, and the only place you'll see it is in your Facebook feed or your Twitter feed. And even then, people eventually catch on to it. So.
I have one other question. I have a website and I've gone in and suddenly it says it's not your JavaScript, but your PHP is old or something. Yeah, and it's like, oh my God, what does this mean?
And what it means is that your hosting provider has not updated the PHP for your server, or if they do offer, you're probably on PHP 5.6.
Okay. Yes, I think it is. That's what I looked up. Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, being on 5.6, 5.6 is about to be dropped as far as support goes.
Okay.
They're about to completely drop support for PHP 5.6. And PHP 7 is going to be the minimum standard.
Okay.
And preferably you need to be running PHP 7.3. And I spent an hour today getting a website to run on PHP 7.3. Although it ran on 7.2, which didn't make much sense. It eventually ended up being my server. I was missing one component in my PHP configuration.
Now, is that
But
my server?
That's
or
your server hosting provider.
The hosting provider, that's their problem. So I
Whoever
call them up
provides
and say,
whoever provides it, you can contact them and ask them to update you to PHP 7, but
okay,
there's a caveat here. Your website might not be ready for PHP 7. You might have plugins or themes that are incompatible with PHP 7, and the moment they upgrade you, your website will go poof. It won't destroy, it just won't run
yes.
until you can find the source of the problem. So you want to have it tested and looked at to make sure it's all PHP 7
There's a
compatible.
plugin, I put the plugin in, and it told me every line on the code that was a problem. It would not work, even before I
Yeah.
did it. It says you're on 5.6, say on 7.2, these are all your problems. If you go to 7.3,
Okay, so
it's not your problem.
you need a professional to go in and fix your site before you go to PHP 7.
Okay, so can I just leave it?
Not for very much longer.
Really? What do you think will happen?
It's not going to work. PHP 5.6 is about to be dropped for support.
Yeah.
You know, they're not going to update it. In other words, any security holes that are discovered in it
Uh-huh.
are going to be used by hackers to hack websites that are running on PHP 5.6.
Okay.
That is coming. It's not, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. They're dropping, because PHP, they haven't done any updates. When was the last time they did an update for 5.6?
Oh, years ago.
Yeah. And they're not doing any further updates. And sooner or later, they did discover a security flaw that they patched, but they're not going to patch any further. And they're just going to leave it. Then even 7 and 7.1,
Right.
7, 7.1, and 7.2, they're dropping support for those. Well, 7 and 7.1 have already dropped support. 7.2, they're dropping support in December of this year.
So if my theme isn't running on it, so then I just have to go get another theme, a new theme.
Get a new theme, then you have to reset the theme up, but your theme might have an update available for it.
But it doesn't. It doesn't.
Oh, you've already
No,
checked with the
okay,
developer the
yeah.
theme?
Yeah.
Oh, so then you gotta replace the theme.
It's a custom theme. Yeah.
Yeah, so you got, well, yeah, if you got a custom theme, it's time to replace it with a good theme from a good developer, a theme company that keeps their themes up to date. So,
What a mess. Okay.
so you basically, it sounds like you need a professional to go in there and fix it for you.
Yeah, right.
Give me a call.
Yeah.
There must be a lot of these set it and forget it.
There's a lot.
Give me a business card.
I'm tired of this
That
bit.
have all kinds
I just
of-
got an email from Google
Uh-huh.
telling me that the mobile stuff is gonna be more prevalent, and I had some problems on my website.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
having your website mobile ready is gonna be,
Massively important. It's already massively important.
yeah.
Mobile ready is already a ranking factor on your website.
There's a plugin.
Yeah. The,
I don't know if they sent me the email based on before I just did an update or on the thing we just implemented a couple of days ago, so I gotta.
hard to say. You'll have to read the email and see what they give you. They usually give you examples, or sometimes they're so vague and you just go, really? What?
Yeah,
Also,
I'm not looking forward to that day of,
Yeah.
look at your site on your phone, and if it sucks, Google thinks the same thing too.
we did a lot of testing on that before we did a lot of testing on the dev site before we moved it over to production.
Oh, okay. So you may have already solved the problem.
Yeah, it's, like I said, I don't know if it's on the old theme or new theme.
Yeah, well, they usually give you a place that you can go into the Google console and resubmit for a check.
Yeah,
So you can go resubmit for a check.
I wanted to do a few more overlooks before I sent
Yeah.
Google at me, so.
Give it a good look. Yeah, when I'm building a site now, as I'm going through it, I'm constantly throwing it up on mobile to see if I'm getting everything,
Yeah, that's
everything's
where the
working, because mobile
customizer
is
really
massive.
handy.
If I'm running WordFence or something, and I know a lot of those kind of security plugins, you know, to stop hackers. So how much am I gonna have to worry about my 5.6 then, if they can't get in?
PHP is completely different than WordPress. PHP is the underlying program that WordPress runs on top of. And PHP is only manageable by your hosting provider.
Okay.
You can't do anything with your PHP.
Right.
You can only write programs to interface with the PHP.
So they
Which
can
is what
come in and
WordPress is.
hack and it's
Yeah, well, they could use a flaw in the PHP to hack into your website. And that's one of the problems. It's like all of my servers, I've just recently got all my servers updated to allow for PHP 7.3. But if you're on a good hosting provider that provides you with a cPanel, control panel,
Yeah.
you can go into that yourself and move yourself forward to the next version of PHP or the latest version that they offer. Some hosts are only offering 7 and 7.1 right now. Some are offering 7.1, 7.2. Some are offering 7.1, 7.2, and 7.3. So you'll want to ask your host to update the server to 7.3.
In a lot of cases, they may have already done it, but they'll alleviate the settings you're at because you'll be exploited, but it'll be working. So they'll give you a way to swap it, which means it'll be safe, but broken.
All right, well, that's all we got.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Please, before you take off here, don't forget to drop $5 in the hat. I really appreciate it.
Or nachos.
Well, whatever works. But
Nachos in the
helps me cover the cost of the room.
So you should get the person who
That's all we got. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Really appreciate it.
You should get the person who reminds us to come